All right. Hey, how's it going? My name's Tony, and welcome to my second act. So, this channel is going to be about discovering the whole world of solo role playing. Now, why solo role playing? I mean, there's a couple different reasons why someone may want to get into solo role playing. I am a very old school, as you can tell, role player, all the way back to second edition AD&D. I have spent years being a GM, which I love, and I sort of tripped across solo role playing during COVID. I was a little burned out on online role playing. You know, I have not had an in-person group for a long time. Typically, the people that I would play with would be other actors. I have a long history in theater as well. And we always approach role playing as from a performance aspect, sort of a kind of a, getting the rust out of the gears, just keeping things moving from a standpoint of characterization and performance and delivery and that kind of stuff. And so during COVID, I don't know, I just kind of tripped across it and read it. I mean, I don't know why, but it just sort of appeared and bubbled to the surface. And so I started looking into it. And initially I thought, well, it's probably going to be missing a whole chunk of the experience. How does it stay spontaneous? How does the story stay, full of tension, or how do you get those unexpected moments? And really, then I discovered sort of Iron Sworn and Me, Myself, and Die. That channel, that guy is fantastic. So check him out. And I thought, no, I'm missing the point. And so I started doing a little bit of experimentation. And yeah, the group dynamic is obviously, it's not there, it's just you. But the story was just as unexpected and full of tension and intent and surprise as running a game, with a table full of people. So it really sort of changed my whole aspect. Now, why would somebody get into role play, solo role playing? Maybe you can't find a group. Maybe you're in a rural area and they still see role playing as some kind of nerd thing, geek thing, whatever. You just can't find the right people to connect to. It's a good way to kind of get your feet wet, especially if you're completely new to role playing and you want something a little more than sort of those choose your own adventure books. This is a great way to kind of break into the hobby. Let's talk about this series. Now, the system that I've chosen, although I got all of my initial experience in solo role playing in the Iron Sworn, mostly in Starforge, which I think is a fantastic setup and setting. I thought there are other people doing Iron Sworn. A lot of people have talked about Mythic Game Master Emulator, and I did some research into that, and I can see where it's going. I think it's a little simplistic, but when you're solo role playing, I'm not sure how complicated you really want to get. It's more about sort of moving the story forward. And for that, Mythic is fantastic. So Mythic is going to be sort of the framework that kind of sits on top of everything. Beneath that, I started using a tool very recently that everyone has been raging about, ChatGPT, which is an amazing, huge, open language AI that actually helped me write part of the setting for this. And so I can show it to you. Oh, maybe I can't. I can show it to you very quickly here. So ChatGPT, you can see I kind of queried it for city names here. So we can say create 10 names for a galactic sector in a sci-fi setting. And it chews on it, and then it just starts spitting out information. You can copy and paste this directly from the window into whatever app you're using to keep track of your information. So, and I am going to probably copy some of this stuff out. I have purposely left a lot of the setting sort of amorphous. I have the basic sort of science fiction-y world that I want to be playing in, and I have the basis, the basics of where my character is starting, what he did before the game kind of begins, and kind of the direction he's pointed. Now everything else is up for grabs, including a lot of the detail stuff about the world itself. Now, from a system mechanics standpoint, I'm using Cortex Prime, which is really great RPG sort of a tool set that allows you to sort of pick and choose called mods that you sort of plug into your character sheet. And here you can see I'm using Foundry GPT to track my character stuff for now. I don't want to do everything in virtual windows everywhere, but in this particular case, you can see that I'm using a setup called distinctions, which are 3 things you assign to your character. My character is an ex-ambassador, and I'll explain that in a second. And so any skills that he would have used as an ambassador allows him to use a plot point to basically create an advantage for himself. Now, you can also, with distinctions, purposely handicap yourself to gain a plot point. Plot points become important in Cortex in a number of different ways that we'll come to as we'll cover those as we come to them. I'm not going to inundate you with Cortex rules. Man of the people, my character was sort of built his career on helping the common person, the citizens of the Consortium, and navigate the maze. He's very good at navigating bureaucracies. So maybe that's information hacking or procurement. He is able to spend a plot point to gain an advantage in those situations. He also has a signature asset. In Cortex, you can have, it's assumed that your character has sort of the effects of whatever he is used to, possessing. If he is a military policeman, for instance, he's going to have a weapon, he's going to have some kind of armor, he's going to, have maybe some kind of transportation, but a signature asset is something that is particular, very specific. And in this case, it's his ship. When he left the Corps, he was able to take his ship along with him. Now, there's some complications to that, which we'll get into, which is how our story begins. But that's sort of what the difference between a signature asset and coming up with an equipment list for your character, which I didn't really want to get into. Now, the roles in this case are sort of umbrella collections of skills. He has a social role, a technical role, and a martial role. And I'm considering every character or NPC in this world is going to have some mix of those roles. And he also, I have assigned him some specializations. So he has a D8 in social, but when he's trying to persuade, he's a D10. That comes from his political background. D8 in technical, but when working specifically with his ship systems, whether that's manipulating his systems or trying to get a little bit more juice out of the ship, he's rolled as D10. His marshal's not very good, and actually I'm going to change that. Marshal is a D6, and what I meant to make the evasion was a D8. So in a specialization, I'm basically stepping up the die, so a D8 to a D10, a D6 to a D8, a D4 to a D6, etc., etc. Complications will occur in this system when rolls are lost. There is no strict hit points or life force points or anything like that. Basically, things break down into scenes, which is also how Mythic works, and contests. And depending on the stakes of the contest, if you're in a firefight, those could be deadly stakes that if you don't get out of that, it's you or them. And there are ways to mitigate that, but it depends. The effect of a scene will determine the outcome of whatever your contest is. That's a feature for Mythic. Assets, if he comes up with any kind of temporary assets, that's where we'll sort of plug those in. The signature asset is a ship, as I said. So the ship's systems are roll a D8. If he's trying to get away or move very quickly, it's a D10. And offensively, it's not really meant to get in a lot of fights with a D6. It's just a political ship that was meant really to sort of move him around the sector. Okay, we talked about that. If we look at Mythic, which I'm going to be using as sort of take the place of the GM, you can see that everything is sort of broken down into probabilities here. Everything's starting at a 50-50 probability, depending on how chaotic sort of the environment is. And chaos rank is changed based on sort of the end result of the scene that came before it. So if I feel that the main character's name is Shelby in this case, is sort of on top of his game or things are going his way, the chaos can go down. And if he's sort of suffering from the effects of what's going on in his world, the chaos rank will go up. And as those chaos ranks change, you can see that the probability chart on the fate chart changes. The fate chart is basically you're rolling to see if the answer is yes. So a question could be, Shelby is breaking into some sort of consortium facility to look for information on his ship. And is there a guard? Yes or no? Chances are in a consortium facility, which is the overall sort of imperium of the world, that would be very likely. So in the Chaos Rank 5, which is where everything starts, you can see very likely anything above a 25% on a roll is going to be a yes. As, wait, did I do that? Oh, I'm looking at very unlikely. Sorry, 85% or less is a yes. As the chaos rank goes up, if for instance the chaos rank was at an 8, then very likely would be 95 or less, which is obviously pretty likely. I'm also using a couple different physical things, which I will show you here in Adobe. I'm using, both of these are made by the same company. It's a Deck of Worlds and there's the Story Engine. Deck of Worlds is going to help me out where it comes to creating settings. So the way the Deck of Worlds works is that you start with a card. In this case, we start with a region card. And I just pulled randomly hills. So in the region of the world that he's visiting, there is something about the hills that sets them apart, different than just any kind of standard hills. And basically, the way these cards are sort of sorted out is all of these are aspects of this particular location, and then the advent card is something that's happened. A divisive election is underway. The vote is split due to political scandal, joke candidate, or ideological opposition. And each one of these cards has many different options, and you basically look for one that you that sort of makes sense to your setting. I use these quite a bit when I run games to help generate not only story ideas, but random occurrences when your players run off and do something crazy. It's really easy then to reach in and start generating, kind of a place to start. So, sorry about the focus of my camera. So that's what we're going to do there. The way that kind of the dice work is that, let me start here. So if, let's say Shelby wants to persuade someone, might as well use that since it's right there in front. So basically he's going to create a dice pool and he's going to pick up one of his persuasion dice, which is going to be a 10-sider. He's also going to add in his social die, and I wonder if I need a third thing. Oh, no, he'll use a distinction. So he's going to pick up basically 2 dice from his rolls and his distinction die. Although now I think we should be adding in something else here. I'm not going to chew on that. So let's say he's attempting to persuade a consortium security member to let him pass into an area that he would not normally be allowed in. He's going to use his ambassador distinction, which is a D8. He's going to use his social trait, which is also a D8, and then his persuasion, which is a D10. And let me flip over to dice. And basically the way that Cortex works is that you're looking for a result of 2 dice, adding 2 dice together, and the third die in this case being a what's called an effect die, which we can get into later. So he's rolled, his best roll here is a 10, adding 2 5s together with a D10 effect die. He's going against a guard, and we're going to say that this guard is not the greatest, but his duty is clear. So this is going to be sort of a challenging test for Shelby. And the guard rolls an 11 with a D8 effect die. So basically what's happened is the guard has beat the roll, but his effect die is not as strong. So if the guard's effect die, and when I say not as strong, it's 10 sides versus 8 sides. If the guard had a 10 or greater, a D10 or D12, for instance, then that would introduce a complication into Shelby. So not only would the guard be successful in saying, no, you can't come, the complication might be that Shelby's identity would be spread across the security network, so that the next time Shelby encountered a guard, that complication, if it was a D10, for instance, would be added to the next guard's encounter, because Shelby's information would be out there. That's how complications work. Complications can be defeated. And in fact, we're going to start with a complication as I get into sort of the world in general. So how long have we been going? 16 minutes, we're okay. I wanted to keep this short. I don't want to throw too much information at you. So the world in general, the Earth, kind of stealing from Firefly a little bit, is used up or was used up in some way and forced the population hundreds of years ago to escape and start reaching for the stars. They discovered a pathway, a network, which actually I'm stealing from myself. It was something I introduced in pretty much every role-playing game that I run. It's this magical / technical network called the Riverway, which connects worlds to worlds, which connects land to land, and there are ways to access the Riverway either through magical means or technical means. When I was running, what was that game? I can't remember the name of it. Zweihander. There was anyone that was schooled in sort of like runic lore from an archaeological standpoint were able to manipulate sort of the controls on these huge fountains to activate the Riverway. And then there was a magical way to do it as well. Now, magic in this world has sort of died off, but a technical way was found to take advantage of the Riverway. So not only did it enable humans to escape Earth, but it also enabled them to sort of populate a sector of space that contains many habitable planets, has allowed them to build space stations and that sort of thing, whole networks. As things sort of settled down in this area, a ruling government called the Consortium was formed. And the Consortium is sort of, right now, pretty generic, sort of, kind of at one point was very beneficial and meant, was very altruistic when it began, and now a sort of a form of corruption and greed has taken hold. And as the Consortium grew larger, it became more and more difficult to manage things on the outskirts, so things like local robber barons and that sort of thing in the name of the Consortium kind of rose up and started subjugating their populations. Shelby was part of a class of Consortium citizen called the Ambassador class. Their job was basically to sort of spread, kind of sort of proselytize the benefits of being part of the Consortium, and also aid populations, make sure that people weren't sort of falling off the map. He discovered, which I haven't decided what it is yet, but discovered some form of political corruption that was serious enough to kind of sort of stop him in his tracks. He tried to, and actually a lot of this plot was sort of worked out with ChatGPT. He tried to start working with other ambassadors, sort of, hey, are you seeing this sort of activity? And almost universally they said, look, we have a good thing going here. I haven't seen that myself, so good luck, but I can't stand with you right now. And so he felt strongly enough that he retired as part of his a reward for his service, they allowed him to keep his ship. Now, they also crippled his ship. Each ambassador ship is implanted with an AI. And over the years of working as an ambassador, Shelby became very close to his AI. It was his companion traveling from place to place, and sort of his second brain. And although it does continue to run the ship's systems, it no longer communicates with Shelby. And so that's sort of his first goal, and it's kind of twofold. He knows that the AI is connected into a network that has access to information that might help him uncover some of this corruption. So there's that aspect of wanting to unlock the AI. But the other one is just sort of to get his friend back. Although, there's sort of a limited sort of relationship that a ship could have with a human, or an AI could have with a human in this world. But, it's very sort of a Tom Hanks and Wilson situation. It is what you have. And I think it was strong enough for him and meaningful enough for him that that's what he would want to do. Now, I am using a couple different applications to track some of this information. You can see that this is, you may not know, but this is an early preview of an application called Tana, which is an information management application, which is pretty fantastic so far. And this is an example of generating places with the story engine deck of worlds. And I have sort of a template here that I'll fill in with cards as they're needed. Creating whole NPCs. Castle is an NPC that ChatGPT has been working on a little bit. I've created the start of an NPC here named Abel Chimera. Abel is an engineer. And when Shelby left the Corps, he certainly had contacts, back through the system. And a lot of the people that he has maintained relationships with are the people that he would work with on a professional basis. Abel was sort of the lead engineer for his ship. And so that kind of created this bond between them. And that is almost enough to get started. We want to talk a little bit about the world in general. So the periphery is, we're going to change this to Consortium. Periphery was something that ChatGPT came up with. I basically just asked it. It was like, come up with, regions of space in a science fiction setting, and it just spilled it all out. Not only created the regions, but gave a description. It's so amazing. I mean, you got to just, whether or not use it for role playing, go to chat.openai.com, and on that page is a try now thing, and it's fantastic. You can ask it anything. I'm just using it to help generate content. But so the Consortium sector is split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections, 7 different sections, because what it didn't include here was actually Consortium space. So Consortium space is going to be sort of the largest area of this sector in space. But separate from that, we have the periphery. Periphery is a region on the outer edges of the Consortium space, known for its rugged and inhospitable terrain. It is home to a variety of hostile alien species, and is generally considered a dangerous place to visit. A dangerous place to visit. The Verge is a region that lies on the border between Consortium space and unknown reaches of the galaxy. It is a region of mystery and exploration with many planets and systems yet to be fully explored. The Fringe is a region on the outer edge of Consortium space known for its lawless and unregulated nature. It is home to a variety of rogue elements, including smugglers, pirates, and other criminal organizations. The Badlands, which sounds as bad as the Fringe, is a region of barren and inhospitable planets that are largely uninhabited by humans. Its harsh and unforgiving place is generally avoided by most travelers. The Wilderness, which I may change to the wilds, I was thinking about that earlier, is a region of unclaimed space that lies beyond the borders of Consortium control. It is a wild and untamed place, many dangers and secrets waiting to be discovered. And the Outlands is a region of the outer space of the Consortium that is home to a variety of independent and autonomous systems. It is a region of diversity and freedom with many different cultures and ways of life coexisting within the borders. And here, was just sort of an interesting exercise. I was talking with ChatGPT. It sounds so weird to say that, but that is what it's like. About antagonists for my character, and it came up with a number of different possibilities. And I'm not sure how antagonistic we're really going to make some of these people, but I will be developing at least Aria, which I thought was probably the most interesting. ChatGPT it's sometimes like talking to a 12-year-old, but there are times that, especially if you're just give me 10 names of cities, and it'll just give you 10 names. And then you can ask it, okay, describe those cities. Now, and I asked about, we talked about, the government structure for the consortium and a couple different ways that could be set up. So I can't recommend it highly enough, especially if you're solo role playing and you want that outside, influence on helping you flesh out what's going on. Now, what I am going to do is, although I'm using Tana to keep track of this stuff sort of on the fly, I'm going to be tracking all of the stuff that sort of makes it through this stage in World Anvil Online, which is a great setup, and really, really a very, it allows you to really dig deep into your details. So I think that's about it. I'm going to pause recording before we do at least a couple scenes, I think. And I think that's it. I think we're going to get started.